Required minimum distribution. The mysterious requirement that you have to take money out of retirement accounts at certain ages and in certain circumstances. What's it all mean? We're going to try and unpack that on this segment of Dollars and Cents. So welcome on into the program. This, of course, is Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. My name is Joel Garris. I'm a certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary at Nelson Financial Planning, where we got a great team of folks who stand ready, willing, and able to help you improve your life with a successful and cost-effective financial plan. Speaking of mysteries, is it just me, or like every day there's like some different unique holiday? So around the office, we were talking about this concept this past week. And lo and behold, Friday was National Dog Biscuit Appreciation Day. I kid you not. Okay, that's supposedly what it was. And so the breadth of the holidays that are out there really is kind of, I guess, one of life's big mysteries, but we leaned into it. So if you check out our social media, our Nelson Financial Planning Facebook or Instagram or Twitter accounts, you'll see some pictures of dogs that are near and dear to the hearts of some of the folks at Nelson Financial Planning, enjoying National Dog Biscuit Appreciation Day while simultaneously either reading our book, Next Gen Dollars and Cents, or listening to our Nelson Financial Planning podcast. I even got one of my dogs to sit for the picture, but it was a little tricky. I had to put a little peanut butter on the cover of the book in order to get a nice picture of him kind of licking the book like he likes the book. But reality is I had to put peanut butter on him to get him to do it. Anyway, it's all fun. We encourage you to check that out on our social media channels. And if you missed it, it's not too late. You can still give a dog biscuit to your dog or a dog that you know. Anyway, the required minimum distribution, let's start with a little bit of a conversation about what exactly it is. As the name suggests, required minimum distribution, there is a requirement to take out a certain minimal amount out of retirement accounts once you get to a certain age. So, or big caveat here, or if you inherit a retirement account as well. And we're going to now break it down into two different parts. So it's your retirement account. The age at which that required minimum distribution kicks in right now, it's age 73. So it's the year in which you turn age 73. So if you're turning age 73 during the course of this year, 2024, then guess what? You've got a required minimum distribution that you must take out of that retirement account. If you think forward to the year 2033, they're actually going to raise that 73 up to age 75. So if you were born after 1958, so in 1959 and going forward, your required minimum distribution age is going to be 75. So my required minimum distribution age, I was born after 1959, my required minimum distribution age is going to be 75. On the flip side of it, if you inherit a retirement account, then you have just 10 years in which to take that money out, report, and pay the taxes on the entirety of that retirement account. So the little caveat here is that if required minimum distributions had already started on that particular account, you've got to continue some baseline level of required minimum distributions based on your life expectancy and still accomplish that full withdrawal over the next 10-year period of time. If required minimum distributions had not started on that particular account, retirement account that you just inherited, then you can wait and you have maximum flexibility. But regardless, you still have to take all of the money out and pull it out of that retirement account so that ultimately the taxes are getting paid. And I guess that's the next part of the conversation. Why do we have this requirement? Well, it should be somewhat obvious. We have a required minimum distribution from retirement accounts because the money that is sitting in there has never been taxed, right? If you put money in on a pre-tax basis, that wasn't taxed. The money that's been sitting there that's been growing has all been growing on a tax-deferred basis. So all of that growth has never been taxed. So the genesis of the required minimum distribution is to sort of get to that, meaning that you got all these dollars that haven't been taxed, and this is the mechanism where the folks in Washington sort of force you to pay up the taxes on them. Folks in Washington sort of certainly need the money, and that's the concept of making sure that that required minimum distribution comes into play. Of course, as we've said before on the program, if you have inherited a retirement account, then the requirement to pay those taxes and to not have that money continue to sit on a tax-deferred basis is much more accelerated than it ever has been. You've only got that 10-year window. So now we know what it is. Now we know when it applies, who it applies to, how it applies. The next question then becomes, all right, well then how do you calculate it? And there's sort of some misconceptions here because the reality is the calculation changes every single year because the two variables that go into calculating that required minimum distribution change every single year. So the variable number one is, of course, the value of the account. Your required minimum distribution is based on the value of your account. So your value of your account obviously going to fluctuate from one year to the next. So you have to look at the value at year end or January 1. Usually when you're looking at statements, they're generated out on 12/31. So it's that value that ultimately you use for the calculation. The other variable in calculating your required minimum distribution is your age, right? And so based upon your age, then you have to go over to the IRS life expectancy tables, and from there, pick your factor based upon your age, and then that life expectancy factor becomes the divisor that you divide into the value of the account. That result then is your required minimum distribution. So that's how much you have to take out during the course of the year. In terms of the frequency or the timing, it doesn't really make a difference except that you've got to take it out before the year ends, before the clock strikes midnight. So you certainly want to make sure that you're dealing with that required minimum distribution. The only exception to that is in the first year, year one, you get to delay it to the next year, but you have to take it out prior to April 1 of that following year. And then again, that only applies in year one. The issue that we have with that is that means that you're doubling up in that next year. So maybe there's a reason why that's a good thing, right? But more often than not, it's best to just kind of take it along the way each and every year. Perhaps one of the most common misconceptions or mysteries about the required minimum distribution is, look, if you're retired, right, and you're taking income from your investments, as you know most people do, then you pretty much are going to cover your required minimum distribution. I mean, the required minimum distribution typically starts out at an equivalent withdrawal rate at under 4%, 3.65% to be exact. So if you're like most people that are retired and you're using your investments and using them to generate out monthly income, then at the end of the day, you're probably going to cover that required minimum distribution. So the required minimum distribution is, as the name suggests, sort of a minimum distribution that at the end of the day, for the most part, and we see it for probably 80, 85% of the time, folks are satisfying the required minimum distribution just by virtue of the income that they are using from their investment accounts during the course of retirement, right? Makes sense. So the required minimum distribution then is not something that you have to do on top of that. It is simply satisfied by virtue of what you're taking out for income from your various account. So some important things to know about required minimum distributions. Hopefully that helps to explain it a little bit more in terms of the perspective on them. So we're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk about your credit. How to improve your credit score. Coming up next here on Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris of Nelson Financial Planning.